Nothing. Didn't really expect anything where I went anyway, but I want to rule it out for the morning. Basically, I went down to the south end of the property around the beaver pond down there. It's actually a duck, which I was surprised at. Still some open water, so that won't be the last probably day of open water on the two ponds. But just confirms what I thought. I went back there behind the property as well, back through the open hardwoods, then down into the sort of cedar swamp down here, or spruce swamp by the pond, and then back up through the trail. And no tracks, which just means nothing's right there right now because the snow is fresh, but there's not really lots of feed down there. So well, there is some feed, but there's acorns that I found earlier up on a ridge. I would imagine the deer had more over to that to feed. But ironically, all the walking I did this morning, and I did a lot, maybe 10 miles of walking way back here, places I've never been, which is, this is the time of year I did want to explore those. And saw lots of sign, well, not lots of sign, I saw some sign way back there on that oak ridge, and then it drops down to a series of beaver ponds, and there's actually active beaver in those ponds. There's lots of fresh feed, the dams have been topped up and the ponds were full. So there's moose and deer sign around those ponds and crossing each of the beaver dams. So nice little funnels there, easier spot to hunt, but it wasn't that much sign. And then when I circled back, I came on the other side of the meadow here. There's a bunch of meadows, beaver meadows, because this is inactive. There's no beaver in these ponds down this way because there's no feed left. They ate it all off years ago. So there's little meadows, drops, old beaver dam, and then dried up swamps with a little bit of water, or dried up meadows with a little bit of water going through the center of them. Anyway, that's just over here on the other side of this creek in that meadow. And there was fresh doe sign, looked like 2 does and a decent sized buck. By the looks of it's in there as well. So that was very fresh, if like they were there as I was going through for sure. So that's where I'm heading in the morning. I'll get up right at legal shooting light is when I'll leave here, which is half an hour before sunup, because right there down at the valley here would be one of the spots they come to. In fact, I've seen tracks in there in the last week or so, right here at the bottom of the hill. So I'll do that. I'll sneak down. I'll get the wind in my face, and I'll just still hunt all along that edge of the meadows and through the hemlock forest where I can walk a little bit quieter, and then I can look out to the meadows and then into the open hardwoods to my right. So I'll spend a few hours doing that in the morning. Looking forward to that, actually. I have to start getting a little bit more serious about hunting now. It's November the 9th, so I've got about a month and a half of bow hunting left to the end of the season, but only another week of rifle season. So I think what I'll do is concentrate on hunting here with the rifle, because it is hard forest to hunt because it's so massive. It's big woods here. There's no agriculture at all in this area, which means it's a lot harder to pattern the deer because they're not going out to an agricultural field like a cornfield or soybean field or something to feed. They're just wandering all through the bush, hitting the fresh acorn or the most current oak trees. Most of those look like the acorns have already been cleaned up by the wildlife though. So they're just picking out raspberry plants and all kinds of other stuff. So just widespread. There's nothing patterning them. And it's a different kind of hunt. It's very challenging. And this is not like the US or even Southern Ontario. It's actually, the term few and far between is very fitting for here because the wildlife is few and far between. So you could go for miles and miles and not see a deer track here. You're lucky if you see a deer. So I'll make some dinner and then check over my gear one more time and then get ready to head out in the morning. So there's been a little bit of talk on my Facebook page about pemmican lately because of that tallow I made, I guess, last week, or one of the more recent videos anyway. So tallow was the fat that I rendered down, and then actually here it is here. That's what I'm cooking my fries in right now, frying my potatoes in. But a couple years ago I made this pemmican for the season for all my canoe trips. So what pemmican is traditional food that was used by the voyageurs and the coureurs de bois when they were exploring this country and founding the country really on the fur trade. So exploring from Quebec west and trapping and trading as they went. So they had to, because they were going so far and they were working so hard, they needed a really high energy dense food source, and this is what they came up with. So basically what it is rendered fat and dried venison. I guess in the past traditionally it would have been buffalo because they traded it from the natives or First Nations out west, further out west where the bison were plentiful. So it would be dried bison, basically jerky, and then you pound it, break it into little pieces, and then mix it with the tallow, melt the tallow, mix the dried meat in it, and then put whatever berries you had as well to add some more flavor and calories, some carbohydrates. So I put dried blueberries in mine. Cranberries would be another thing that would be probably fairly popular or common back then. Anyway, I like it. I salt the jerky, salted the jerky, and then I pound it and put it in here. And that's 2 years ago I think I made that, and it's perfectly fine. It lasts pretty much forever and it tastes good still. I like it. Anyway, what I like to do, because you really have to get used to that, and it takes a long time to get used to just eating chunks of that and nothing else. So I was never able to fully survive on that for a trip, where I could survive, I guess, but didn't find it palatable enough that that's all I wanted to eat for a trip. So what I have been doing, or what I was doing with a lot of it, this is my last, I think I have maybe 4 packs left of this, is I would put that in the frying pan, melt that down, and then cook my meal in it. So it adds all that flavor and calories to the meal without having to eat that straight. So what I will do now, I started these French fries, these fried potatoes, on the fire before I went out hunting. So they're pre-cooked, and now I'm going to take those out actually. I'll put them in a separate bowl, heat that pan back up, put this in, get the pan up to high temperature, then finish off the fries, fry that again. And then I have a bison steak, a buffalo steak. I ended up actually buying this when I was in town getting my groceries for the week. I really like bison or buffalo, and it's a nice little steak, so I'll cook that separately but also in this, and then put the two together, and that's my dinner. So I'm going to throw some onions and garlic in there as well. I always like that. I ended up pulling that pemmican out and putting it back in the bowl because I'm crowding the pan here with these potatoes. So So they're taking longer to cook, and they're going to be harder to get to crispy because I don't have that much fat in there or oil. And I'm crowding it, like I said, so too much moisture and not enough exposure on all four sides to the grease. Anyway, so what was going to happen if I left that pemmican in there, all that meat was going to, little fine jerky was going to burn. So took it out, and I'll put it back in. I'll finish these off and put it back in, and then put the bison steak in there with some onions and garlic. Probably save some of this for breakfast if I can, actually. Gonna head out deer hunting first thing in the morning, so it'd be nice if I didn't have to bother cooking anything for breakfast. Although I could just have oatmeal with my coffee, I guess. Some pemmican flavored French fries, basically. Wish I had some cheese curds actually go on that. Pemmican poutine would have been nice. Yeah, that's really good, actually. I'm going to take a little bit off this bison steak before it. Yeah, perfect. Medium rare. Perfect. I'm going to do something that I actually filmed probably a dozen times and closer, and I've never actually edited a video and released it to you guys, and that's opening mail. I know a lot of YouTubers do that, and I've just never felt like, I don't know, it just feels pretentious or a little bit strange to be opening mail on camera. But on the other hand, I've always felt guilty for not thanking people enough for sending me stuff, because, you know, a lot of people will go out of their way, they spend money, they spend their time, you know, wrapping stuff and shipping it off, and then I try to thank them if I have the contact information directly, but it doesn't always work out. So I'm going to open these things quickly on camera. Like I said, a little bit awkward. Let me know if you actually like to see what people are sending me. I could do this a little bit more often, I guess. I don't get into the P.O. box that often, maybe once every 3 weeks or so. So some of this stuff has been sitting there for a while. People are reaching out saying, did you get this or that? And that's the reason. I just don't get there often enough to get it maybe in a timely manner. So I'm going to open these things quickly. I won't talk about it too much. I won't go on and on. So I'll just show you what they are and who sent them, and just know that I do appreciate it, though, and I'm sure put everything to good use, including toys and stuff for Callie. So get into this very quickly. So people do send me stuff a lot, and a lot of the times it's really nice handwritten letters. That light is so bright. I can find a better way to do that. A lot of times it's handwritten notes or full. Actually, I'll open one from a guy who sends me something quite often. It's amazing how much time, like I said, people are putting into it, and how much thought they put into sending somebody something that they've never met, and I really do appreciate that. It doesn't, just because I haven't shown it doesn't mean I don't appreciate it. A lot of times companies send me stuff too, right? And I guess that's part of the reason I don't like opening the mail on camera, is that you know, sometimes they're just looking for free publicity, and I don't feel like it's the product that I want to endorse, so I don't actually end up saying anything, which is probably not right either. It's not fair of me. It's a very nice mug, actually. It's a little gold coin here. It says I've crossed the Arctic Circle. Thank you. I do appreciate that. This is a letter from a guy named Ron. He sends stuff probably once every 2 months maybe. And he just puts a ton of time and effort into writing these long, everything that's on his mind about, helpful advice about building the cabin, things that he's done in the past. Just a novel. I do read as much of it as I possibly can, and I really do appreciate it. And then he always makes me something as well out of like a faux leather. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it, Ron. This is Sean. I hope you guys enjoy these. Please read the burning instructions in the candle tag before lighting. If you have any challenges or questions, reach out. Look forward to hearing from your thoughts. Be well. Barrie. So they make beeswax, 100% pure Canadian beeswax candles. Burn time 220 to 240 hours. Burn time 90 to 110 hours. Tapers. Very, very generous of you, and I know that these are not cheap, but they were well worth the money to buy pure beeswax candles. I always wanted to make them actually on my own, and never got around to it, partially because of the cost and the availability of that much wax. So I'll get a lot of use out of those. Thanks very, very much. I'm not sure. I think this is from, and I need to find the name. They sent me an email. The publisher, I believe, of Dick Proennke's One Man's Wilderness, and this is First Wilderness, My Quest in the Territory of Alaska by Sam Keith. So the publisher reached out to me last month, I think it was, and asked me if I could write the forward in the next edition of One Man's Wilderness, the next one that's going to be released. Now, an edition just was recently released with the forward written by Nick Offerman from Parks and Recreation, which a lot of you guys actually joke about me being similar to him. So thank you for these. Thank you for everything. I really, really appreciate it. As I keep saying, please don't ever feel like you need to send me anything. I just appreciate you guys that you're following along and you're supporting the channel and giving me your comments and likes and you're subscribing to the channel. That's enough. Thanks for me. But of course, I really appreciate all the time and effort you put into sending stuff as well. And Callie does as well. She's been getting some gifts as well, and she'll be opening hers in the next episode, I'm sure. So thanks everybody, I really appreciate it. A lot of snow. Alright, it's time to get out there. Deer might be on the move, or they might be hunkered down because it's pretty windy out and very snowy. We get maybe 5, almost 6 inches of snow since yesterday. When I was cleaning up in the afternoon, getting all the building materials stacked up, like the logs and stuff, so I could find them, there was no snow at all on the ground. Now 4 or 5 inches and it's still snowing, so we're gonna end up with, I don't know, it snows all day like they're predicting, maybe 10 inches. So what I'm gonna do is try to stalk through where I found the deer sign yesterday. There was some fresh buck scrapes and tracks and droppings just back here on the other side of the meadow. So I'm going to walk slowly through there. I'm going to overdress so that I move slowly. Like typically when you're doing outdoor activities, you end up overheating and sweating, and then that freezes and you get cold. But when you're still hunting for game like this, even in the cold, you want to move as slow as possible. It's almost like stand hunting. You're just going to walk. I'm going to walk a few yards and stop, look around, keep scanning ahead of me and all around me in case they circle. And then sometimes I'll stop for 5, 10, 15 minutes, maybe even longer if it's a really good spot, or I suspect that there's deer nearby. Let them calm down, because they typically stop when they hear the sound of me walking, which I don't like these pants for that reason, because they're a little bit noisy. So that makes me have to walk slower too and be careful about what I brush up against. So anyway, stalk them along, and if I break a branch or something, deer hears that, they stop for minutes and stare in that direction to see what it was. And if nothing moves or they don't get my scent, then they'll go back to doing whatever they're doing. So I'll have to keep walking slowly like that and see what if I can get close enough to a buck. Like I said, they might be hunkered down, but the rut should be going good right now, so the buck should be chasing the does and harassing them. So like I said, I'm overdressing for that reason. I can always strip down when I'm moving fast coming back, or if I shoot a deer or something. So I didn't bring my camera yesterday when I was walking around. Today I will. I'll put it in the pack, so I won't be able to film everything. But if I see something interesting, then I'll pull it out and show you what I'm up to. I'd like to wear my fur hat, but that's a really bad idea during deer season, so I'm going to be wearing my hunter orange. This might be overkill though. Thing is, you can always put more clothes on, but or take clothes off if you have it, but you can't put more on if you don't have it. So if I get too hot with this, which I might, this down jacket's really puffy and warm. Well, I can take that off and put it either in a pocket or into the down backpack. Well, that's twice today that this young buck crossed over the dam right here by the cabin. I'm looking up at the cabin right now. So when I got up this morning and came outside, I started coming down the path behind the cabin down towards the water, towards the beaver dam. There was tracks coming up right past the cabin. Just kind of circled around and actually stopped to feed a little bit. So probably during daylight, by the looks of like right at legal shooting light, so half an hour before sunup probably, by the looks of how much snow was in the track. And it was headed that way, so I followed a little bit and then decided that I would circle all the way around the meadow, see if there's any deer on this side, and then down to the next meadow, and then back up around to where I thought that deer might be going. Sure enough, I get all the way around and just about all the way back to the property boundary on the southwest side, and decided that deer must not have gone that way, must have gone back the other way. So I stopped, pick some birch bark off a tree so I could get a fire going later, and ended up, as I was taking the birch bark off and putting it in my pocket, I look over and there he is staring at me. So I swung my rifle up. He took off. Didn't know what I was, I guess, because he went down to the south and just about to go up a ridge, and I started giving a doe call. And I guess it turned right away and came and got downwind of me, right in the open hardwoods too, but it must have been just a little ridge between us, and I didn't see him. Anyway, I started tracking him when I figured out where he was going. He came all the way back, all the way through my tracks, all the way back to here, essentially. On and off, we were playing cat and mouse in the thick woods here in the hemlocks. So he would go a little bit, I would circle, he would pick up my scent or hear me, and he would circle, and it ended up that I got to this little clearing right here at the edge of the stream and jumped him. He was standing right here. He went running across the water here and right back across the dam again. So it's probably right back to where I originally put him out this morning. So I'll give him a little break and go back out there, slowly track into the wind. Maybe an hour from now, give him time to settle down. It's a good buck for food, young buck, but a good body size. Yeah, it's tiring. The snow is getting pretty deep. It actually is adding to the amount of effort it takes to walk through it. But it's pretty and makes for easy tracking. You can tell which tracks are fresh. Looks like there was at least one doe, maybe two does in here with that buck this morning, as they were last night, so I figured they would be. So I might be able to just set up right there by the cabin every morning and evening for the rest of the season with the rifle to shoot down to here, crossing the dam. And then when bow season kicks back in a week and a half, I'll set up right on the edge of this beaver dam. Get a stand in there. It's a good time to talk maybe about hunting. I've got a lot of people, most people that follow this channel know that I hunt, obviously. But there is some people that are uncomfortable with it, at least, or that don't like it at all, are kind of anti-hunters. There's this common joke that says, well, none of us is getting out of here alive. And if you think about that from well, I guess from your own perspective, so if you know that eventually you're going to die, how would you choose to die? Obviously you're not going to choose a slow and painful death. You're going to hope to pass away in your sleep of old age, or in old age. And that's just not what happens to wildlife. So if you were a deer, how would you like to end your life? Typically, the animals in the wild almost never die of old age, maybe never. They're typically, especially up here, taken either by predators or injury, or often here it's starvation in the winter, or could be even freezing to death, but usually from malnutrition first, or an injury from predator attack or something else, or falling through the ice. That's a common form of death here as well. So if you put it in perspective, to die at a hunter's hand is actually one of the lesser evils. And when it comes to evil, hunters that I know, majority of hunters, especially as you get older, are not evil. We harvest game, food from the land, and when we take an animal's life, we do have remorse. I think that probably the best definition of evil is causing something or somebody pain, unnecessary pain and discomfort. And that's certainly not what a hunter's doing. We don't maim animals, trying to make them suffer. Our goal is to take an animal cleanly, humanely, and end its life quickly so that there is no suffering. And sometimes the consequence is that mistakes are made and there may be some undue suffering, but that's not the intent of the hunter. So the hunter is not evil. So I can certainly say that's the case from my perspective, at least. It's not even 10 o'clock. I've only been out here for 2.5 hours, but I've put a lot of miles on. Unlike what I said this morning, I moved a little bit too quickly. I probably, knowing that he was coming back to the cabin, should have known he was going to hang up here and taken it really slowly. By the time I got the rifle up, I couldn't get a safe shot at it. But it's starting to clear up a little bit actually. Oh, there's ducks flying way up there. Heard some flying around earlier, low to the water too. But anyway, the sun's peeking out through the clouds there. It's beautiful. Snow stopped. I think I'll go up and make a tea and then, like I said, give the deer an hour and then head out again. Took off. Yeah, I'm going to end up pushing them right out of the area, so I think maybe I'll give them a break for a full day. At least, maybe 2 days. So this is why I don't stand hunt in a new spot. Like, don't go to one spot and sit. The main reason is that I just don't know the area well enough yet. So this is my second fall here. I didn't really do much deer hunting here last year. But the only times I did go out, I actually saw a deer down here in the valley. So the cabin's just over there. If I come over across the hardwood ridge and back down into this little valley, it's to the south and west of the beaver meadow. It's all these hemlocks in here, so the deer like to get in there when the snow falls because there's not as much snow on the ground, and it's also cover. So what happened is this morning when I saw the track crossing the beaver dam coming right past the cabin and over to this way, I walked over to here, but the wind was blowing in there, so I ended up backing out and actually honestly looking for different deer and then coming back to this spot from downwind. So I went all the way around the meadow, far down to the next following meadow, way down the creek, and then back up. When I got all the way to here, essentially on the other side of all those dead trees that got hit by lightning a few years ago, just on the other side of that, is where I put up that young buck that ended up circling me, and I played cat and mouse with him all the way through the bush on the north side of the meadow. So then I jumped him, and he was with a doe this time at the beaver pond, or at the beaver dam right by the cabin. So they ran right past the cabin again, kind of split up, and then came running through here. So I'm following this running track right now, and it's probably headed up over to my other pond where the next thicket is, where the next batch of heavy cover is for hiding. But what's interesting is I just found another track coming out from there from this morning going up this way. So I'm assuming what happened is that the buck and the doe were in that spot together when I jumped them this morning. They separated. The doe must have come up through here. She's probably the one that I see all through the summer for the last 2 years that kind of lives down on this part of the property. So I guess the buck ended up going all the way around and then trying to come back over here to try to find her again. So this spot, as I'm getting to know this property, and now that I've walked such a vast area in with some snow down and not seeing all that much sign, I'm thinking this is probably one of the better spots to just sit. So I'd already identified this little rock ridge here as somewhere to sit with my back up against a tree and be able to cover this whole valley. Now, I don't know if there's other hunters in the area. I haven't heard any shots or four-wheelers or anything this week, which surprises me. Because if they were out and about, they'd be pushing deer into this area because there's not much activity here with just me. Anyway, I am going to continue following this track slowly just to confirm my suspicions and maybe set up this evening and just wait to see if they come out again. In the meantime, I'm going to look for a spot, I think, to get a fire going, dry out my gloves, and maybe cook a steak up. I was hoping to maybe have some venison liver this morning for this afternoon, but I'm thinking that's not going to be the case. It's a tough hunt. This is big land up here, and there won't be deer for miles and miles, like zero. There's hardly any game at all actually right now. And they travel and they don't go to one spot, they don't bed in one area, and they don't feed in one area, so it really is random, which is why typically we do what's called drives here in Ontario on this kind of terrain where you get a bunch of guys and they'll work their way through a bush and the deer come out to standards. They're the standards are the ones that get the shots. And you get to see some pretty country too, and it's not as boring just sitting around waiting in a low productive spot, not seeing much. Anyway, let's see what we can find here. turning out to be a frustrating fall so far. So I went out for a walk this morning, well, hunting, sitting and walking for a couple of hours, maybe 3 hours this morning. Didn't see anything, didn't even see any fresh tracks. I came back, worked on the cabin for the rest of the day, and just went out for a walk right now. And a moose and 2 deer have walked in my footprint since I was out this morning. Which they do like to do. They're curious, and it looks like the path of least resistance, so they tend to walk in footprints of whatever animal's gone before them, and often backtracking to see where I came from, or where a person has come from. So that's what they did, moose and deer. So I'll try again this morning, or tomorrow morning. Still early, I could be out still, but kind of let the fire almost die off, or die down. So fire that back up and get dinner going, and just get ready to go back out in the morning.